Hello, and welcome to the presentation of this short module on computer crime and piracy. Now, my name is Shouvik Kumar Guha, and I'm an assistant professor at the West Bengal National University of Juridical Sciences, Kolkata. Now, today, before we can start talking about computer crimes, let us see what are the learning outcomes of this module first. The first one is to make the learners understand the fundamental concept of the way in which technology can be used in order to commit various kinds of criminal offenses. The second is to make the learners understand the extent of penetration of computer and technology in our daily lives through avenues such as e-commerce, and to acquaint the learners with the various forms of cyber crimes, and finally to make the learners understand the different provisions of various Indian laws such as the Information Technology Act 2000 that have been applicable to identification and prohibition of such crimes. Now, when it comes to computer crimes, the internet is the world's most voluminous repository of information and facts and is formidable in terms of its size and variety. Now, India may be said to be one of the forerunners when it comes to information technology or IT. Now, till recently, India stood third in the world with respect to the percentage of internet users, with Indian users accounting for approximately 17.2% of the global percentage, which amounts to an almost staggering 12151695584 over 1.2 billion users. The main reason for such a huge number of internet users in India is that a very large percentage of the Indian population is below the age of 30 years, and such a large number of young people contribute considerably to the Indian workforce, which in turn is very much dependent on information technology. It is based on these factors that the information technology and business process outsourcing or BPO industries in India have attained global prominence. Now, all these above figures give rise to the hopes of a bright future, and rightly so. However, maintaining this feasibility and the hopes of such a future is a rather onerous task, and should India want to retain and improve upon such impressive statistics, the administration must ensure proper infrastructure, both in terms of physical infrastructure as well as a robust legal regime. Now, it is from this perspective that the topics of computer crime and cyber law assume importance, because the information technology industry is based on the usage of computers and thus comes under the purview of cyber law. Literally put, any law that deals with issues arising from the usage of the computers and the internet may be termed as cyber law. Now, cyber law envisages a wide field, including both the procedural as well as the substantive aspects, because given the peculiar nature of information technology, the procedural aspects of the current law cannot be adequately used with respect to the IT-related legal issues. Now, the primary legislation in India that pertains to the information technology industry is obviously the Information Technology Act 2000, as amended by the Information Technology Amendment Act 2008. Other than this, several existing legislations, notably the Indian Penal Code 1860 and the Indian Evidence Act 1872, stand amended to incorporate various provisions particular to information technology related issues within their fold. The reason why the IT Act was introduced in India was to provide a framework with regard to e-commerce in India. As has already been stated, IT has made good inroads into India due to its inherent advantages. This has resulted in a concomitant rise in the popularity of the usage of IT in India. If one were to peruse the statement of objects and reasons given in the IT Act itself, one will find a clear acknowledgement to that effect. As it says, the two principal hurdles which stand in the way of facilitating electronic commerce and electronic governance are the requirements as to writing and signature for legal recognition. Since electronic commerce eliminates the need for paper-based transactions, hence, to facilitate e-commerce, the need for legal changes has become an urgent necessity. Now, given the flux that the society is going through at present, we may be said to be right in the middle of a new industrial revolution, one that has the potential of forming a new type of society, an information age. Movement to that end has already begun, and it is for this reason that we are now hearing the ubiquitous term global village to describe the world. This phenomenon of global village has been possible simply due to the case of communication that has been ushered in by the revolutionary changes in IT. Information and communication technology for development is a phrase that is used to address the usage of information and communication technologies in the domain of socio-economic development in a country. The ICT Development Index is a concise parameter which combines 11 specific criteria into a single yardstick value on a scale of 1 to 10, and this index is used to keep a tab on the development in the field of ICT in both the developed as well as the developing countries. Now, the index is also used to measure the growth and change in the digital arena on a global scale. In 2015, a total of 167 countries were measured in this index, and India went to have the rank of 131. Now, in electronic transactions, e-commerce, there are basically three stages: marketing and advertising stage, browsing or buying including payment stage, and delivery of goods and or services. In any transaction in which at least one or more of these above three steps is effected through online means falls within the category of e-commerce. India is a major hub of e-commerce. The success of various e-commerce websites such as Flipkart, Amazon and Snapdeal bears testimony to this fact. Since the ITES BPO industry, following the definition of e-commerce, falls under the category of e-commerce, the volume of e-commerce transactions in India has grown at an exponential rate. Now, when it comes to computer crime, a strict definition of the same cannot be found in the IT Act or even the IT Amendment Act 2008. In fact, the definition does not occur in any legislation in India. Going by the dictionary definition, a computer crime may be said to be any criminal act that involves a computer or a mobile or similar electronic instruments of communication as a tool for the commission of the offense or as a target of the committed offense, or both. At the 10th United Nations Congress on the Prevention of Crime and Treatment of Offenders, in a workshop devoted to the issues of crime-related computer networks, and computer crime was broken into two broad categories and was defined thus: cybercrime in a narrower sense, a computer crime, which means any behavior directed by means of electronic operations that targets the security of computer systems and the data processed by them, and cybercrime in a broader sense, which means computer-related crime, any illegal behavior committed by means of or in relation to computer system of network, including such crimes as illegal possession and offering or distributing information by means of a computer system or network. Again, another broad cybercrime categorization is crime relating to property, essentially financial crime of any nature that is affected online. Data theft also comes within this heading. Second, we have crimes relating to intellectual property, violations of copyright and trademark done online. Then we have crimes affecting persons, including harassment, cyber stalking, cyberbullying, etc., which also includes child pornography. Then we have crimes affecting nations, such as cyber terrorism, cyber warfare, and targeting national cyber infrastructure, and so on and so forth. When it comes to categories of offenses, offenses in general can be categorized in several kinds, and different kinds of computer crimes can also qualify as belonging to one or more of them, depending on the nature of the crime and surrounding circumstances. We have, for example, cognizable and non-cognizable offenses, bailable and non-bailable offenses, compoundable and non-compoundable offenses, and so on and so forth. So let us start with cyber squatting. Simply put, cyber squatting means unauthorized usage of cyberspace. Now, generally, cyber squatting occurs by usage of domain names that resemble the name of a famous or popular brand or entity. More often than not, by virtue of a first mover advantage, the squatter is able to register the squatted name and therefore acquires a valid and enforceable legal right to the same. Then the squatter goes on to sell the squatted name to the owner of the popular trademark at a very hefty price. In case the owner refuses to buy the name, the squatter has the option of exercising his legal right to stop the owner of the popular brand name or mark from using the squatted name as his domain name. Now, cyber squatting overlaps with infringement of intellectual property rights, and in India, it is considered to interfere with the Uniform Dispute Resolution Policy, a contractual obligation to which all domain name registrants are currently subjected to. Next, we have cyber terrorism. Now, there is a general definition of cyber terrorism as envisaged under Kevin J. Coleman of the Tech Analytics Institute, which reads as follows: the premeditated use of disruptive activities or the threat thereof against computers or against networks with the intention to cause harm on further societal or ideological or religious or political or similar objectives, or to intimidate any person in furtherance of such objectives. Barry Collin described cyber terrorism as the convergence of cybernetics and terrorism. Mark Pollitt, a special agent for the FBI, defines cyber terrorism as the premeditated, politically motivated attack against information, computer systems, computer programs, and data, which result in violence against non-combatant targets by subnational groups or clandestine agents. India may be said to have already become a victim of such attacks when in 2002 several famous websites in India were compromised with various messages pertaining to the issue of Kashmir were found scribbled on the home pages of the attack, and the recent ransomware attacks just a couple of days back. It was widely believed that these attacks were orchestrated by the Pakistani Hackers Club under the leadership of one Dr. Nugar. Even in 2010, the CBI website was attacked by hackers under the name of Pakistani Cyber Army. The countries of Georgia and Estonia were the victims of sustained cyber warfare during the Russo-Georgian War. The next kind of cyber crime is data theft. Now, Section 66 of the IT Act 2000 deals with data theft, which simply means unauthorized access to information that is deemed to be confidential and not present in the public domain. The offence itself is dealt with under Section 43 of the IT Act, and Section 43 capital A of the same Act contains the penal provision. Section 66 of the IT Act further contains the punitive provisions. Now, this Section 66 was particularly invoked by the Andhra Pradesh High Court while dealing with and giving out the judgment in the famous case of Syed Asifuddin and others versus the state of Andhra Pradesh and others. Next, we have denial of service or DOS attacks, DOS. Literally put, a denial of service attack implies denying access to any service to which a person is legally entitled to. The most common way this attack is effected is through the means of sham emails, which invariably return a null value. Common examples of denial of service attacks are teardrop attack and ping of death attack. As the name ping of death suggests, this attack implies that within a particular span of time, a particular website garners so much of traffic that it exceeds the bandwidth of the website, as a result of which the website cannot handle such a huge volume of traffic and thus is unable to process the request. Hence, many users of the website are unable to access the service of the website. DOS attacks are not always intentional. Sometimes, due to a huge increase in traffic for genuine reasons, a website might face issues in handling a large number of users simultaneously, and thus many genuine users might not be able to access the website. One example may be said to be when websites of examination boards cannot be accessed during the time of declaration of results due to a sudden and huge increase in traffic in that website. Next, we have hacking. Perhaps the most ubiquitous and most fearful of computer crimes is hacking. Hacking essentially implies gaining unauthorized access to a computer system or program, or data, and network resources. Every existing computer program is a potential target of hacking. It is essentially a technical offense effected through various means. Even if a person mistakenly leaves his or her email inbox opened in a shared computer network and the same is accessed by someone else, that activity falls within the purview of hacking. The most popular targets of hackers, who are the individuals who practice hacking, are government websites. Even the website of the Ministry of Defense was hacked into once, mercifully with very little harm. Jadavpur University's website was hacked into during the recent student agitation regarding the resignation of the ex-Vice Chancellor of Jadavpur University, Avidhi Chakrabarti. Multiple such instances exist on a regular basis, indicating the rapid spread and severity of this kind of offense. Hacking as an offense used to be defined in Section 66(2) of the IT Act 2000. However, after the amendment of the Act in 2008, the term does not occur anymore in the Act. It has now been brought under the purview of the blanket term computer-related offense. Hacking, again, may be divided into ethical hacking and unethical hacking. As the names suggest, ethical hacking is hacking that is committed with legitimate or bona fide intentions. usually with the prior consent of the system's owner, so as to identify possible vulnerabilities within the system and find defenses against possible future attacks, etc. Unethical hacking naturally implies hacking committed for illegal or nefarious purposes. Next we come to webjacking, which is forcibly taking over the control of a website by breaking the password of the same and then modifying the contents therein. For all practical purposes, the actual owner of the website loses all control over the website and the jacker becomes the actual controller of the website. Section 65 of the IT Act and Section 383 of the Indian Penal Code are sections that are pertinent to the offence of webjacking. One of the most famous incidents of webjacking occurred when a hobby website run by a teacher in the United States was webjacked and a ransom of $1 million was demanded. The owner of the website dismissed the threat, thinking the same to be some prank. However, soon enough, the culprits got into action and replaced the word goldfish in the website with the word piranha under the section having fun with goldfish. As a result thereof, many children, believing the article to be a genuine one, followed the instructions given therein and got seriously injured. Next we come to cyberbullying. As the name suggests, cyberbullying means bullying a person in the cyber realm. Bullying in itself means intimidating or threatening somebody. Now, when the same is done through cyber means, the offence comes under the purview of cyberbullying. Generally, the notion of bullying implies the involvement of children only, but thanks to the anonymity offered by the cyber realm, even adults indulge in cyberbullying. According to the Cyberbullying Research Center in the United States, cyberbullying may be defined as the willful and repeated harm inflicted through the use of computers, cell phones, and other electronic devices. In the IT Act, there is no provision particular only to cyberbullying. It comes under the purview of Section 66 and the penal provisions of Section 43. Then we come to cyberstalking. Following the previous definition, cyberstalking may be said to be the stalking of a person done in the cyber realm. As in the case of real-life stalking, cyberstalking consists of stealthily following or keeping a tab on an individual's online activities. It may seem on the face of it that such stalking does not cause any direct harm to the victim except for the creation of a jarring feeling that someone is constantly being watched over. However, it may lead to graver breach of privacy if left unchecked and other forms of more serious offences. Cyberstalking may be said to be a form of trespass to person. Section 72 of the IT Act 2000 comes closest to addressing cyberstalking because it deals with breach of confidentiality and privacy. It does not deal with privacy specifically. Section 354 capital D of the IPC, subsequent to the Criminal Law Amendment Act 2013, deals specifically with cyberstalking. But this section is narrow in its scope inasmuch as it is gender specific, wherein offenders under this section are males and victims are always females. Section 72 of the IT Act, on the other hand, is gender neutral and rightly so. Statistics related to cyberstalking in India present a really grim picture. According to law enforcers, majority of cybercrimes involve the element of obscenity, and 75% of the victims of cybercrimes include women, children and adolescents. The financial capital of India leads with regard to cybercrimes, followed by the political capital, Bombay, followed by Delhi. When it comes to phishing, phishing is simply bogus or fraudulent emails sent in order to gather personal information of others. Generally, the targeted information is valuable financial information such as credit card numbers, passwords, account details, etc. Now, the word phishing has been derived from the word fishing, that is F-I-S-H-I-N-G, because much like actual angling where a bait is used to catch fish, in fishing, bogus emails with lofty promises are used as a bait to convince gullible people into parting with their valuable information. Then we come to farming. Now, farming is very similar to fishing. While fishing is affected through the use of bogus emails, farming is affected through the use of bogus websites. Farming essentially occurs through manipulating URLs to make them look very similar to existing URLs of famous websites, so that unsuspecting people are redirected to the fake URLs when in fact they wish to go to the original URL. Farming can occur even if the victim types correct URL by redirecting them, unknown to the users, to the bogus URL. Next we come to damage to computer system. Now, Section 43 of the IT Act deals with damage to computer system and the penalty and compensation therefore. Now, according to this section, if any person does any or all of the following acts without the consent of the owner of the computer system or the person who has the responsibility of looking after the computer system, he shall be deemed to have caused damage to a computer system and shall be liable to pay damages for the same. The purported acts include having access to any computer, computer system, computer network, or computer resource, then procuring any information or data from such computer system, etc., like through a USB pen drive, then introducing any virus or any other digital contaminant into such computer network, then causing damage either physically or digitally to such computer system, then causing any disruption in the working or functionality of a computer system, then denial of access to any person legally empowered to use such computer resources, aiding in the commission of offences with respect to such computer resources, making such an arrangement that the usage done by a person on a particular computer system is charged to the account of some other person, colloquially known as internet time theft, then compromising with any information in such computer resources, stealing, hiding, or totally annihilating any computer source code to cause intentional damage to such computer systems, and so on and so forth. Thus, basically, Section 43 of the IT Act contemplates of any physical or digital attack directed at the computer itself and not to attacks effected through the means of such computer. Such offences therefore fall within the category of computer crimes in a narrow sense, or computer crimes of attacking computers. Section 66 of the IT Act deals with punishment for the offences described in Section 43. In itself, Section 43 prescribes punishment in the form of payment and of damages, and Section 66 contemplates punishment in the form of imprisonment, which may extend up to 3 years, or with fine which may extend up to 5 lakh rupees, or maybe even both together. Therefore, while Section 43 is the substantive section, Section 66 is the penal section. When it comes to obscenity, Section 67 of the IT Act deals with the punishment for publishing or transmitting obscene material in electronic form. Now, obscene in this section has been defined to essentially involve a mental or a prurient element, one which involves the titillation of individuals. Therefore, the section is very much subjective in nature because it nowhere clearly defines as to what is lascivious or what actually depraves or corrupts persons, because what appears lascivious to one person need not necessarily be lascivious to someone else. A picture which excites one need not necessarily excite another. Also, when looked at from the point of view of constitutional validity, this section may be said to infringe the rights guaranteed under Article 19 of the Constitution. Of course, obviously offensive or obscene messages may be hid by this section. Now, Section 67 contains provision for imprisonment for up to 3 years and fine of up to 5 lakhs for the first offence. For every subsequent offence, the imprisonment may extend up to 5 years and the fine up to rupees 10 lakhs. Next comes defaming the government. Now, in general, it is a criminal offence to defame the government or any government official publicly. Now, this assumes further gravity when the ridicule crosses the threshold of constructive criticism. Commenting on governmental action is further frowned upon if it is done online on some special social media websites, because such websites have a tremendous reach and comments made thereon may be transmitted much faster as compared to other means of transmission. Now, the following sections are usually pertinent to this issue. We have sedition under Section 124 capital A of IPC, defamation under Section 499 IPC, sending offensive messages under 66A of the IT Act 2000, which section now stands repealed after the Supreme Court's judgment in the case of Shreya Singhal versus Union of India. Then we have, if any female government official is ridiculed or made subject to any sexist remark, then apart from these sections which we have just mentioned, the offender may also be charged under sections 3 and 4 of the Indecent Representation of Women Prohibition Act 1986. On similar lines, if a celebrity or any famous personality were ridiculed through the means of online social media, action may be taken against section 66 capital 6C of the IT Act. Prior to the Shreya Singhal judgment, even section 66A was a potent weapon against such activities. Then we have child pornography. As the name suggests, child pornography is pornography involving children. As reprehensible as it may sound, child pornography is a reality. The main reason in this thrives is because the internet ensures unrestricted access to any part of the world and to any type of information. Now, the internet does not distinguish between an adult user and a child user, and thus, if any child wishes to watch pornography or indulge in sexually explicit chat with other users of the internet, there is little that can prevent them from doing so. Now, many pedophiles take advantage of this trend and therefore indulge in child pornography. Many times, young and unsuspecting children go so far as to share their pictures with strangers on the internet, and this aids child pornography. Pedophilia laws in India are considerably stringent, and child pornography is no exception. Section 67 capital B of the IT Act deals with child pornography and prescribes punishment for the offence too. This section describes child pornography as any material transmitted electronically that depicts children involved in sexually explicit act. Even transmission of such material electronically is made punishable under this provision. The punishment prescribed under this section is imprisonment, either simple or rigorous, for 5 years, and fine of up to 10 lakh rupees for the first time offence. For the second time offence, of course, the imprisonment may extend up to 7 years, while the fine remains the same. Then we have identity theft. Now, one phrase would cogently and aptly sum up the offence of identity theft: fake profiles. Identity theft implies pretending to be someone else with some ulterior motive, like a man with magnified intentions may pretend to be a damsel in distress and thereby cheat some gullible individual. Now, statistically, India is at a precarious position with regard to identity theft. As per the results of Microsoft's third annual Computing Safe Index, or MCSI, 12% of the people surveyed in India claim to have had suffered identity theft at least once, and on an average, it cost them rupees 7,500. The survey put the global cost of identity theft at $5 billion US. Now, this is a type of cheating by personation wherein the inherent motives are generally financial. Common examples include pretending to be a bank official and thereby coercing someone to cough up information relating to bank account details and passwords. Now, this offence is dealt with under Section 66C of the IT Act and comes with a punishment of up to 3 years and fine of up to rupees 1 lakh. Next, we have voyeurism. Now, voyeurism in the Indian context is a gender-specific act wherein only men can be charged under this section and women only may be the victims. This act essentially envisages that any man watching or capturing any woman in any private act which he would have the reasonable expectation that no one is watching would be liable to punishment of imprisonment of minimum 1 year to 3 years and fine for a first-time offence. For the second time, the quantum of punishment goes up to 7 years, and so does the amount of fine. Women cannot be charged under this section, as I have already said. Relevant sections in the IT Act is Section 67, which, however, is gender neutral in nature. Now, when it comes to ISP liability, an ISP under the Indian law falls within the purview of an intermediary as defined under Section 2W of the IT Act. Now, under this Act, the ISP liability is dealt with under Section 79. Now, this section provides for a sort of safe harbor, or existing safe harbor provision that is already prevalent in EU Directive 2000. As per the safe harbor provisions, ISPs cannot be held liable for each and every action of each and every single consumer of the internet services on the web. The ISPs simply need to act promptly on government directions. They particularly cannot be held liable if they do not in any way interfere with or modify the information contained within the transmission. Now, however, if the internet service provider has some actual and effective involvement in the transmission, then he may be held liable. He will also be held liable if he does not act promptly on governmental instructions. However, all this does not imply that the ISPs can safely turn a blind eye to whatever is happening on the internet through their services. As per Rule 4 of the IT Intermediary Guidelines Rules 2011, there is an obligation on the ISP to actually remove objectionable content from their websites within 36 hours of receipt of information regarding any such content. Then it comes to piracy. Now, piracy per se is not a computer crime. It consists of unauthorized copying and distributing of any intellectual property, most commonly films and songs, that is digital media products. Now, very recently, there was a huge uproar with the pirated version of the film Udta Punjab having been released online even before actual release. The act of piracy results in exorbitant losses to the recording industry. Since piracy involves copying of intellectual property, given the current level of technology we enjoy, any conceivable intellectual property that is available online is at a potential threat from piracy. Piracy must, however, be distinguished from plagiarism. Now, in plagiarism, the main things at risk are scholarly articles, unlike piracy, where the main items at risk are commercial articles. Again, in plagiarism, the main motive is not commercial, it is rather academic or an attempt to gain credit for the idea or effort of another. In piracy, the main aim is commercial gain. Even software may be subjected to piracy. Now, traditionally, the legal provision that have been used the most to fight piracy is copyright law. Piracy is an infringement upon the original copyright owner's rights, financial, legal, as well as equitable, thereby giving the copyright owner a right to bring an action against the individual indulging in piracy. Because piracy such as media piracy and digital piracy are invariably affected through the use of computers, the provisions of the IT Act are attracted as well. Now, of all these threats, the threat of software piracy in India has assumed the largest proportions. This is followed by illegal downloads of movies, songs, and even television CDs by the internet users. Relevant sections of the law under which software piracy can be proceeded against is Section 120B of the Indian Penal Code, read with Section 63 of the Copyright Act 1957. Software piracy comes under the purview of Section 66 of the IT Act, and if convicted, the offenders are liable to pay damages under Section 43 of the IT Act. When it comes to Indian governmental policy, the government has undertaken a host of measures to ensure that the Indian IT regime can be brought at par with globally accepted standards. Considering the amount of revenue generated from IT-based services, it is only obvious that we also have a robust legal regime with respect to the same. It has been made mandatory that there should be a strict adherence to the security policy in government offices and agencies in line with the Information Security Management System, or ISMS standard ISO 27001. Guidelines with regard to computer security have been formulated, and they are circulated to and publicized in all government departments and ministries. There have been instances of cybersecurity drills being undertaken to measure the preparedness of government organizations in case of cyber emergencies. The 5-year plan in information security also lays down certain standards to be followed in this regard. Now, in India, there also exists a national cybersecurity policy which enjoys official recognition. However, there exists no officially recognized cyber certification authority either at the national level or at the sectoral level. Now, there exists the 5-year plan, as we have said, the main aim of which is to provide a roadmap for the future. The implementation of this 5-year plan has been entrusted to the Department of Electronics and Information Technology and the Ministry of Communications and Information Technology. Now, there already is a provision for having security auditors undertake audit with regard to cyber security, vulnerability, penetration testing of computer systems and networks of various government organizations. Some cases in point would be Avnish Bajaj versus State of Delhi, Syed Asifuddin versus State of Andhra Pradesh, PR Transport Agency versus Union of India, Times Internet versus Measures Belize Domain, and NASSCOM versus Ajay Sood, and so on and so forth. To conclude, India has already made her presence felt in an international arena with regard to cybersecurity and IT by signing several cybersecurity cooperation agreements with countries such as the United States, Japan, and South Korea. India was actually a participant in the cybersecurity drill conducted by the US called Cyberstorm 3. CERT-IN experts have helped in establishing a CERT-Mauritius agreement too. Unfortunately, there exists no such agreement in the interstate level in India. Therefore, as we can figure out, it is very clear that cybersecurity as a governmental aspect is given its due importance in India. Considering India's dependence on it and the rate of computer crimes in India, ignoring this aspect would be detrimental to the national interest. Given India's seriousness with regard to IT, both infrastructural as well as legal, it is well understood that India is set to retain and in fact improve upon her global position in the IT sector. It is said that when work well begun is half done. To that end, India has indeed made a good beginning, but it is not time to rest upon those laurels because we still have miles to go before we sleep. That will be all. Thank you.